ASMR, ASMR. Hello, that was really good tracing. I'm happy for myself. Today, I just wanted to check that you did something like recreational for yourself. Like it doesn't have to be anything big, like you didn't have to go out like swimming or like go out to a bar or anything like that, but just that you did something that relaxes you, something that you do that's not like thinking, like if you're into like scrapbooking or something like that, if you have a certain hobby, if you crocheted at lunch today or something like that. That is awesome, and I am proud of you. I am proud of you. And if you didn't, just take like 5 minutes to read another chapter or to just like have a little bit of fun, because sometimes it's nice to take the the rush, the edge off of things, just because sometimes things get lost. So just hoping that you don't lose what you love, because sometimes it's easy to just get caught up in work, and not do things that you enjoy. So hopefully you did something that you enjoy, because today I have a day off. I scheduled it this way. I made sure that I had a day off today, so it's not by accident, but I'm still very happy that it's happening, because it's just like, it's just done. I don't have to do anything. I can just kind of take time for myself, because I've prepared everything that I need for tomorrow. So yeah, I just get to like chill for a while, which is, it's not rare. Well, it is rare, actually, now that I think about it. But yeah, anyway, I've got an interesting video idea. I don't know how long this video is going to be, just because there's stuff to say, but there's not like much stuff to say. I don't know if that makes sense. But there's something in my eye. But yes, it's definitely something interesting and something that I've wanted to show, but I've just never known like what to show or how to show it. But I figured it out. So I am going to be talking today about the process of African violet propagation, because I have been doing a lot of this. This has been like looking at all of my plants. African violet propagation has definitely been the December project for me, and then of course that has continued into January. So this is going to be a rare video where I do some glass tapping, because this is also my way of reusing things around the house. So I will show you everything that you need. I don't have like a stand here for everything, but I'll just like hold things up. So basically what you need for this is whoa, this is getting dirt everywhere, my goodness. There we go. What you need is, of course, a mature African violet. This is not a mature African violet, but we'll get to this in just a little bit. We'll get to that in just a little bit. And then you'll also want a bunch of glass containers. Plastic obviously works good for this as well, but I just use old containers for things. Like I've got these old jam jars that my mom picks up. Sometimes she picks up just like a breakfast at work or something like that, and they've had these little, excuse me, and they've had these little like jars of jam or something like that. So I'll grab these. I will also, like a Starbucks cup, I'll take a box cutter knife, and I'll take a Starbucks cup that I've drank from, and then I'll just cut about this size, This is another thing that I'm trying to root, but I'll cut about this size off of the bottom of a Starbucks cup to use as like a larger propagation dish until I build up more of these little jars. And then you also, oh yeah, there's some of my, I'll go grab them in just a second, but I also have a propagation station, which are, they are, like, I believe that they have one at IKEA. Because I use IKEA for everything. I talk about IKEA a lot on this channel. But you can find, like, I think one at IKEA, but I just bought that one on Amazon. I'm gonna be the person who says, don't go on Amazon to buy stuff, because Amazon is not an ethical company to support, but it is difficult not to, because like brick and mortar stores are dying, and Amazon is kind of people's only option sometimes, so I don't judge you for that. Yeah, that's why I usually look at IKEA for things first, or I will look on like an independent like garden center's website. So if you have a garden center nearby, visit them, ask them if they have any propagation stations. Mine did not, neither of the ones that are near me. Well, I have like 5 garden centers near me, but I go to 3 of them regularly. But generally they'll know where you can find like a propagation station to buy, but sometimes Amazon is just the best bet. Choose the cheapest one. Do not choose an expensive one. This one, it does require some assembly. I forget which product this is, but literally look it up on Amazon and you find like millions of these things. Yeah, go for the cheapest one. It's just a bunch of glass vials on a stand. Like, honestly, you could probably just get like a bunch of miniature champagne flutes or shot glasses in your set, honestly. But like, oh, okay, a really cool like propagation station idea. If you bought like one of those like sleeves from like Costco or something like that, or like a business supply store of like plastic shot glasses, you could use those like that. That would be a good idea too. But yeah, get creative with it. Go cheap. Don't spend a ton of money on this, because of course these are just your temporary homes. I just got this propagation station because I think it looks nice. I did it for the aesthetic, truly, because I'm a sucker for decor. But yeah, another good thing to have is like, I'll go get them really quickly. I do also use, like, here is one of the jam jars. I just had to refresh this one's water. I also use these old HelloFresh things because they send you plastic, and also because like we just have a lot of them. This is not sponsored by HelloFresh, but like, if you guys want to sponsor me, I use your stuff. So I do use HelloFresh just because it's like, it's getting to the point where I have gotten creative enough with my cooking that HelloFresh is more of like a practice thing for me now, like practicing the skill of cooking. But I like having the new ideas. I like having some like interesting skills taught to me. Like, for example, I can cook a slab of salmon really reliably now. So that's more so why I use it, less so than like getting the meal choices, because the meal choices are good. But it's also just like, it's good for me to practice my cooking skill. But anyway, yeah, I use these old HelloFresh containers. I have bottles old of like old balsamic vinaigrette and as I've gotten so into cooking lately, and my mom has too, we've kind of challenged each other to get better at our cooking. We visit these oil and vinegar stores quite a bit, and it's just fun to see what flavors they have. But when we use one up, I add that to my propagation stuff list. So anyway, kind of the last thing that you'll want. So you'll want, of course, an African violet. You want vessels for your cuttings, and then you'll also want just some throwaway pots. I usually, I would say, keep nursery pots. I got, again, this set of multicolored pots for like $12 on Amazon. I think I got 20 of them, and they come in multiple different colors. And the reason why I got them is because I needed a lot of pots quickly because of course, all of my African violets that I am nurturing right now. So it was kind of necessary for me to get like a set of them, and a set of pots, like just regular old pots, are very hard to come by. So I just reuse these over and over and over and over again for a lot of my propagation projects. So what do you start with? How do you start propagating your African violets? So the reason why I say you want a mature plant, usually I'd say get a plant that is flowered, is just because I have taken a cutting from one of my successful propagations, and it started to root. Like you'll see these get like that blurriness in the water is like its root system that it's developing. Like they will root if they are from a more immature plant, but I find that it takes forever for it to develop a plantlet. The other thing is I find that mid-sized leaves like this one work far better. They shoot off plantlets far better than larger leaves, and I'll go get an example of one of my larger leaf ones. So I've got two of them, my larger leaf ones are doing well, like they're alive, but I find that it takes longer also for them to shoot out a plantlet. So I'm not sure if there's like a sweet spot for the leaves, or maybe it has to do with like the container that they're in. I'm not quite sure, but I like to choose about this size of leaf, and then I just chop it. So what I usually like to do, if my grandma, for example, but like these, all of the leaves that you've been seeing are from two different African violets that my grandma had them. My grandma had two African violets that were on their way out. I think she just stopped watering them. Not like fully, but I think she just like began to stop caring for them as much because she had kind of moved on, which there's no shame in that. If you have a plant that you're just like, I'm not feeling it anymore, and you need to give it to somebody, if you want to experiment with it, go for it. I say that's better than you keeping a plant that you're not invested in. So rehome it, or do what I did, which I'll tell you about in just a second, but just don't let it die. That's what I'll say. Don't let it die without exhausting all of your options first. So if you have a friend who can take over for it, if you have something unique that you can do with it, or something like that, like what I've done here. So anyway, she didn't want them anymore. She was going to toss them, and then I was like, hey, I was working on propagating a couple of African violets, so why not try? So basically in like November or maybe October of last year, 2023, I took two cuttings from two of her other African violets, which are still going strong, and I thought, why not try this? So this is the original leaf. This is the original cutting that I took. This guy, I don't want to tip it too far over. There we go. This is the original cutting that I took from one of her African violets to start this project. And then I took on her two dying African violets to kind of do my own thing with. So I took both of her African violets, which had both flowered for, I think, about it, like on and off over the course course of about a year and a half or 2 years or something like that. And then I watered them. I chopped off probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I cut off like 12 leaves or something like that. Yeah, 2 of them died. I know, 2 of them did die. 2 of them did die, but that's okay. 12 leaves are a lot. So so I chopped them up. I watered them. I tried to save them, but I think I chopped up too many leaves, and they started growing really, really tiny. So what I ended up doing is I just ended up composting them. And then I put their soil into. I have a little, I have a tower planter, not big. It's just like a $30. It's got 10 little slots for plants. That I ended up just mixing that soil in and building up a couple of the plants that were in that. And I decided that I would then get rid of them. I didn't keep the nursery pots. I tossed the nursery pots. There used to be a place where we could take them back, but that place doesn't operate in the winter, so of course. So anyway, I basically cut them and then immediately put them into water. Now you've got to watch. Thin stemmed ones are great because African violet leaves do not like to get wet. The only thing is once they develop a root system, you need them in something larger with a larger opening, like these vials here, because the plantlets shoot off of the bottom of the stem. You can see there's a little plantlet right there. They shoot off the bottom of the stem. But if I try to pull this one out, I have to be really, really careful that I don't break off any piece of the plantlet. So just watch out for that. But I do have a few where I did have to hurt a few plantlets, and they're doing fine now. So it's not the end of the world. I also have one where I did hurt a lot of the plantlets, and now it's downstairs, but it's in a larger opening vessel, and that is doing a lot better. I think it's shooting out another plantlet here pretty soon. So I do that. So they'll initially look kind of like this, a really small root system just around there, no green, and then you'll see that eventually they start developing a larger root system like this, and they'll start shooting off plantlets. Now this plantlet is still too small. But I do have an example of one that is a little bit larger, which I'm probably going to plant here in the next few days. So if I bring this over, you'll see, let's see, there's 2 in this one end piece. Okay, there we are. So you'll see in this one, there is a lot of green around the stem of the larger leaf here. This is the only large leaf that is actually given off a bunch of plantlets. So there's a ton coming off of this leaf, which I'll probably end up planting. So you want them to get around that big. Let's see, can I show you? Yeah, you want them to get around that big before planting. Then, there we go. Then, once you're ready to plant, this is a bit tricky because when you remove the root system from the water, it's not spread out. It just like all groups together. That's fine. You can't solve for that. You can't get them spread out unless you spend like hours spreading out the root system manually. Then basically what I do is I've taken just a regular potting soil. Contrary to popular belief, you do not need a propagation medium. It helps for certain plants that are more finicky, but for an African violet, regular potting soil works. Check for other plants that you have what propagation medium you should be putting them in, just because some of them do require better drainage, some of them do require a different environment to propagate healthily. But for potting soil, or for African violets, potting soil works perfectly fine. So I just put to save some space. And then because your root system isn't going to be huge, and then I just planted with most of the plantlets above most of the plantlets above the soil, just like that, just like that, just like that. If you have to trim a plantlet that's sort of like on the, like, this one was great because most of the plantlets were developing on this side of the stem, but there was one or two on another one that I have that were developing all around. So sometimes you have to remove a few plantlets. That's okay. Plants work on an energy banking system where basically the more stuff on a plant, the more energy it has to take in, and the more energy it has to expend on those things. So that's why with like my alocasias and things like that, if a leaf starts to show signs of dying and yellowing, I'll chop it off before the leaf goes fully yellow, because I know it's going to die anyway, and by chopping that leaf, it gives more energy to the rest of the plant and to possibly shooting up a flower or another leaf or something like that. So it might seem counterintuitive to snip off plantlets, but what you snip off, all the energy that was going to go to those pieces is now going to the other pieces. So it's like an energy banking system, like I said, so you're not hurting the plant unless you chop way too much for the plant to support its root system or to support its, like, the part that shows. So then you basically want to keep the soil evenly moist, let like the top 2 inches dry out, and then water pretty regularly. You need to watch them, especially when they are at this stage, mostly because you don't want to starve the plant of a good system of nutrition. You want to keep them in low to high levels of light. Don't keep them like my windows on this side. I would never keep this over here because that's just, it's not going to give the plant what it needs. So generally I keep this one just on my desk where it gets a lot of sun. This one, the one in the yellow pot that I showed earlier, I keep it in my room. You'll see it on my mirror in most of my videos that I shoot from my bed, and it just lives there, and it gets probably like 2 or 3 hours of direct sunlight every single day, and then it gets like bright indirect light. So I would say some direct sunlight is good, and then bright indirect light for the rest of the day should help. So you kind of make sure to watch it. You make sure that it's getting enough water, and this one does need a little bit of water here. This one does need a little bit of water here. I'm just going to make sure that it doesn't have the opportunity to overflow. Just put it on the coaster that I have here. I'll just put it on the coaster that I have here, and I'll probably water it again. Sometimes I like to water them in my bathroom sink because then I can just let them drip out. You want good drainage. For most plants, if I'm being honest, even if it says you don't need good drainage for most plants, then after you sort of keep up with it, you establish the plant, then you end up with something like this. This is my only fully developed African violet plant that I've gotten through propagation, which also needs a lot of water right now. I'll probably take it to the bathroom now that I think about it, but this is my biggest success story in terms of propagation, and that one in the pink pot that I've been showing you is very close to my second success story. And funny enough, the way that propagation works, this plant and this plant are genetically identical because they both come from this leaf. They both come from that leaf. So, like I said, I snipped this leaf off of one of my grandma's still alive. This cutting right here off of one of my grandma's. My nail is still chipped. I still haven't filed it down. But I clipped this from my grandma, and it has produced now 2 successful plants. Mostly, if this one doesn't succeed, then I'm going to be upset, but at least I've gotten one. So yeah, this is the mother of this plant as well, this plant as well. So that's kind of exciting. I was was going to throw it out because you can see this leaf is starting to curl up. It's starting to yellow a bit. So I doubt that I'm going to get a third plant out of it, but it was kind of an experiment just to see like what I could achieve with one cutting, and so far it's been really successful. So here's a magpie outside. So the last thing that I'll say, when you plant it, you want to leave the mother leaf on for about as long as it takes for that plant to start growing. Once you see that it's shooting out a new leaf, once you see that it's starting to grow a little bit stronger and bigger, once you see that the leaves of the plantlets are starting to develop stems like this one is, that is when you can chop the leaf, and then from there you kind of decide if you want to repropagate it like I did, or if the leaf doesn't look like it's viable, then you can toss it. I'll probably put that one in water just to see what it does. But the reason you want to leave that leaf on is because that is the main solar panel for that plant. That is what is drinking in the majority of the sunlight during the plantlet's early stages, so that's why you want it still attached to the plant, and then once the plant starts showing signs of growing on its own, that's when I chop off the parent leaf. So you chop a leaf, you put it in water, you make sure that the leaf is not wet. Then once it develops a root system, make sure its vessel has a large enough opening to lift it safely out. And then once your plantlet gets bigger, once it looks like leaves rather than just like tiny little green dots, then what you can do is you can take it out, plant it in some dirt, leaving the leaf, the parent leaf on. Once it starts growing, you can cut that parent leaf off. You make sure that it stays evenly moist, letting the top surface dry out of the soil, and then eventually you have this. I'm really looking forward to when this one flowers, this yellow one flowers. I think this will be a pink flower. I'm really looking forward to when it flowers, because after it flowers, I'm going to chop a leaf off of it and see if I can continue the propagation, because it will be genetically identical to, like, I'll have a bunch of genetic clone African violets laying around, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, technically when you're doing propagation, you're also cloning. Yes, women in STEM, we love it. But anyway, I said this would be